The door slammed in my face so hard the porch light rattled. Through the frosted glass, I could see Melissa's silhouette, arms crossed, immovable as stone. Behind her, I heard my grandkids laughing at something on TV, completely unaware their grandfather stood 3 feet away holding wrapped birthday presents. "You're not welcome here anymore, Martin," she'd said before the slam, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Not after what you did." My son Kyle had stood beside her, head down, hands shoved in his pockets. He wouldn't even look at me. Just mumbled something about it being better if I left. Better for who, I wanted to ask, but my throat had closed up that I stood there for a full minute, clutching a bag with a toy train set and 2 chapter books, watching my breath fog in the October air. Inside, my 7-year-old grandson Tommy was turning 8 without me. My granddaughter Emma, barely 5, probably wondered why Grandpa hadn't shown up like I always did. The porch light clicked off. Message received that I walked back to my truck in the darkness, set the presents carefully on the passenger seat, and drove away from the house I'd helped them buy. "You know what you did." Those were Melissa's exact words before she shut me out. I replayed them over and over during the 20-minute drive home, trying to make sense of the accusation buried in that sentence. What had I done? Showed up to every soccer game? Read bedtime stories every Sunday for 3 years? Paid for dance lessons and baseball equipment and summer camp? Been a grandfather who actually gave a damn? My phone buzzed at a red light. Text message from Melissa: "Stay away from my children or I will call the police. You brought this on yourself." The light turned green. Someone honked behind me. I drove forward on autopilot, barely seeing the road. Call the police? For what? I'd never raised my voice to those kids, never missed a recital, never showed up drunk or angry or anything close to inappropriate. I was the steady one. The grandpa who kept promises that I pulled into my driveway and sat in the truck, reading her message again. The threat felt surreal, like I'd stumbled into someone else's nightmare. My wife Caroline had died 4 years ago. Those grandkids had become my reason to keep going. And now they were gone. My name is Martin Keaton. I'm 62 years old, a retired high school principal who spent 35 years teaching kids about consequences and second chances. I raised my son Kyle to be honest and kind, though right now I wasn't sure what had happened to either quality. What Melissa didn't know, what Kyle had apparently forgotten, was that I'd been quietly funding their entire life for the past 6 years. The private school tuition for both kids? What? Every semester, $18,000 transferred from an account Melissa never saw. The extracurriculars, the sports fees, the music lessons? What? The down payment that made their mortgage possible when Kyle's credit fell short? That was $35,000 from my retirement savings that I'd never mentioned it because that's not why you help family. You help because they need it and you can. Caroline always said I was too generous for my own good, but she'd have done the same thing that I sat at my kitchen table that night, looking at bank statements I'd pulled from my filing cabinet. 6 years of transfers, carefully documented. Over $200,000 invested in my son's family. They had no idea. The perfect Sundays started 3 years ago, right after Caroline passed. Kyle had suggested it, actually said the kids needed their grandpa around more. Every Sunday at 4, I'd drive across town with cookies or books or whatever small gift I'd found during the week. Tommy would charge at me the second I walked through the door, wrapping his little arms around my legs. Emma would shyly offer me drawings she'd made, usually featuring stick figures labeled Grandpa, in wobbly letters that we'd read stories until dinner. Sometimes Kyle would join us, sometimes Melissa would smile from the kitchen doorway, seeming genuinely pleased I was there. When had that changed? I thought back, trying to pinpoint the shift. Maybe 6 months ago? Melissa started making comments about how I spoiled them too much, or undermined her parenting. I'd brushed it off as normal mother protectiveness. Then came the college fund certificates. I'd given them to Tommy and Emma last Christmas, official documents showing $50,000 set aside for each kid's education. I thought Melissa would be thrilled. Instead, she'd gone quiet, her smile frozen like ice. Later, I heard her telling Kyle it was inappropriate and controlling. Controlling? I was securing their future. The coldness had crept in slowly after that Christmas. Melissa stopped inviting me to stay for dinner. She'd schedule the kids' activities during my usual visiting hours, then apologize like it was an accident. Conversations became shorter, her answers clipped. Kyle started acting strange too, avoiding my calls, canceling lunches at the last minute. When we did talk, he seemed nervous, like he was hiding something. At a family dinner in March, Melissa had made a comment that stuck with me. We were discussing Tommy's struggles with math, and I mentioned I could tutor him like I'd done with hundreds of students over the years. Melissa had laughed, but there was no humor in it. Some people don't know when to stop meddling, she'd said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The table went silent. Kyle stared at his plate. I tried to laugh it off, but the tension hung in the air like smoke. That was the last family dinner I'd been invited to. 3 weeks after the door slam, I ran into one of Melissa's co-workers at the grocery store. Amanda worked at the same dental office, someone I'd met a few times at school events. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, like she wanted to disappear into the cereal aisle. "Martin," she said quietly. "I'm sorry about everything." I had no idea what she was talking about. Sorry about what? She glanced around, then leaned closer. What Melissa's been saying. About the party incident. I don't believe it for what it's worth. My stomach dropped. What party incident? Amanda's face went pale. She realized I didn't know. I shouldn't have said anything. I'm sorry. She hurried away, leaving me standing there with a half-full cart and a growing sense of dread. Later that night I called Kyle. He didn't answer. I left a message asking what Melissa had been telling people that he texted back an hour later. Just drop it, Dad. Please. So there was a story. A lie. And my own son wouldn't defend me. I drove to the kids' school the next morning, telling myself I just wanted to make sure they were okay. The receptionist, Mrs. Huang, had known me for years since I'd donated money for their new library. Mr. Keaton, she said warmly. We haven't seen you at pickup lately. Is everything all right? I asked about Tommy and Emma, how they were doing. She pulled up their accounts on her computer, then frowned. Actually, there's an outstanding balance. The tuition payment for this month didn't go through. My chest tightened. What do you mean it didn't go through? She showed me the screen. The automatic transfer I'd set up years ago had been canceled. Last month. Who canceled it? I asked. According to our records, Mrs. Melissa Keaton called to stop the payments. She said the family would be handling tuition differently going forward. I thanked her and walked out, my mind racing. Melissa had cut off my payments without telling me. What? Did she even know they were coming from me? That evening I went through every financial record I had. The anonymous scholarship fund I'd created through the school. The sports league fees I'd covered by writing checks to the association directly. The deposit I'd given Kyle for his house, claiming it was an early inheritance. Everything had been done quietly without fanfare, because I believed that's how generosity should work. You help because you can, not because you want credit. But now that generosity was being weaponized against me. Melissa had cut me off from the kids, and apparently she'd started cutting off my financial support too, maybe without even realizing where it came from. I sat at my desk until midnight, staring at numbers that represented 6 years of love and sacrifice. Over $200,000 invested in a family that had just erased me. I could stop the payments entirely. Let them figure out how to cover $18,000 in tuition, plus all the activities, plus the mortgage help I'd been quietly providing. But that would hurt the kids. Tommy and Emma didn't deserve to suffer because their mother had decided I was the enemy. Not yet, anyway. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, 2 months after the door slam. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the return address. Tommy's elementary school, hand-delivered by a teacher who knew me. Inside was a crayon drawing. Stick figures on a green field, one labeled Grandpa standing far away from the others. Below it, in Tommy's careful handwriting, "Why don't you come to my games anymore? Mommy says you're bad." Are you bad, Grandpa? I read it 3 times, each word hitting harder than the last. Melissa wasn't just keeping me away. She was poisoning them against me, making me the villain in a story I didn't even understand. I called Kyle immediately. He answered on the 5th ring. "Dad, I'm at work." "Your son thinks I'm a bad person," I said, my voice shaking. "What exactly has Melissa been telling them?" Silence. Then quietly, "She's just trying to protect them." From what? From their grandfather who loves them. You don't understand the full situation. Then explain it to me. More silence. I can't right now. I have to go. The line went dead. I showed up at Kyle's office the next day without warning. He worked at an insurance firm downtown, cubicle life that paid the bills but left him tired and distant. When he saw me walking toward his desk, his face went pale. We stepped into an empty conference room. What did I do? I asked directly. What am I being accused of? Kyle wouldn't look at me. Melissa says you made a scene at her birthday party. Said some things about her parenting that were out of line. She feels disrespected. I stared at him. What party? I wasn't at her birthday party. You didn't invite me. His eyes widened slightly. Confusion, then realization. You weren't there? No, Kyle. I spent that day at home because I wasn't invited. He sat down heavily. She said you showed up drunk and criticized her in front of her friends. That you called her a bad mother. I've never been drunk in your house. I wasn't there at all. The truth was settling over him, uncomfortable and undeniable. His wife had lied. And he'd believed her. Why would she lie about that? He whispered that I had no answer. Over the next week, I did something I'd never done before. I investigated my own family. I checked social media posts from Melissa's birthday party. The date matched Kyle's story, but in every photo, I wasn't there. Time stamps, guest tags, everything proved I'd been nowhere near their house that day. I also discovered something else. Photos of Melissa's new car, a luxury SUV I'd never seen before. Designer purse posts. Vacation pictures from a resort in California that must have cost thousands. Kyle's salary was decent, but not that decent. I knew because he'd asked me for mortgage help 2 years ago, claiming they were stretched thin. I started digging deeper, carefully, just looking at what was publicly available. Credit card mailings that arrived at their house, mortgage statements, utility bills that Kyle had mentioned struggling with. The picture that emerged was clear. They were living beyond their means, possibly drowning in debt, and my financial support had been keeping them afloat without them fully realizing it. And now Melissa was cutting off that support, maybe because she didn't know where it came from. I attended Tommy's soccer game from across the field, standing behind the bleachers where I wouldn't be spotted. I just wanted to see him play, to watch my grandson run and laugh and be a kid. That he scored a goal in the second half, and my heart soared. I wanted to cheer, to run onto that field and hug him, but I stayed hidden, gripping the chain link fence. That's when Melissa saw me. She marched across the field, pointing at me, her voice carrying. "What are you doing here? I told you to stay away from my children." Parents turned to stare. Other kids stopped playing. Tommy looked confused, staring at his mother, then at me. The soccer coach intervened, trying to calm Melissa down. That's when the school principal, Mr. Valdez, appeared. He'd been watching from the parking lot. "Mr. Keaton," he said, surprised. "I didn't know you'd be here. We've been meaning to thank you again for funding our new library wing. The kids love it." Melissa froze. The other parents whispered. Kyle, who'd been watching from the sidelines, looked like he'd been punched. The library wing had cost $50,000. Anonymous donation made 2 years ago. The whispers spread fast. By the next day, half the school seemed to know that the mysterious benefactor, who'd funded the library, the computer lab, and 3 years of scholarships was the same grandfather Melissa had been calling unstable. Kyle's coworkers heard about it. Melissa's friends at the dental office heard about it. The entire parent network buzzed with the revelation. I didn't say a word. Didn't gloat, didn't explain. I just let the truth sit there, uncomfortable and undeniable. Kyle called me that night. "Dad, I need to talk to you." We met at a diner far from his neighborhood. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Melissa's been lying," he said quietly. "About the party. About a lot of things." "I know. She said she was protecting the kids from your control. That you were using money to manipulate us." He rubbed his face. "But you've been paying for their school this whole time?" "Yes. Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at my son, this man I'd raised to value honesty. Because help shouldn't come with conditions. I gave because I could, not because I wanted credit. He started crying then, right there in the booth. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I should have believed you." But believing me wasn't enough to fix things. Kyle went home and confronted Melissa, demanding to know why she'd lied about the party, why she'd cut off my payments without discussing it. According to Kyle, she broke down, claiming she felt suffocated by my involvement, that I made her feel like a bad mother, that she needed space to parent her own way. Some of it might have been true. Maybe I had been too present, too helpful, too quick to offer solutions. But lying about me? Turning the kids against me? That crossed a line. Kyle asked her to apologize. She refused, saying she'd done nothing wrong. So I made a decision. I stopped all payments. Completely. No more tuition transfers. No more activity fees. No more quiet checks to cover their mortgage shortfall. If Melissa wanted independence, she'd have it. Within 3 weeks, reality hit them like a freight train. No, Melissa, I said quietly. You ruined mine first. I just stopped paying for your lies. I did it to protect my kids. From what? From a grandfather who loved them? From stability? From truth? She had no answer. The rain soaked through her jacket and she looked small, defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd slammed a door in my face months ago. I didn't know it was your money, she whispered finally. Kyle never told me. Would it have changed anything? She looked at me, then really looked, and I saw something break behind her eyes. I don't know. Behind us, I heard footsteps. We both turned. Tommy and Emma stood in my doorway, Kyle behind them. Grandpa, Tommy said, his voice small and uncertain. That I knelt down, eye level with my grandson. Hey buddy. Are you really bad? The question hit me harder than any insult Melissa had thrown. I shook my head. No, Tommy. I'm not bad. I'm just your grandpa who loves you. Emma, who'd been hiding behind her brother, peeked out. Mommy said you went away because you didn't want us anymore. I felt tears sting my eyes. That's not true, sweetheart. I've wanted to see you every single day. Kyle stepped forward. Kids, Grandpa has been helping our family for a long time. He paid for your school, your activities, a lot of things we needed. And we didn't say thank you. We didn't treat him right. Tommy looked at Melissa. Why did you say he was bad? She opened her mouth, closed it, then knelt beside them. I made a mistake, she said, her voice breaking. A big one. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. But it was a start. 6 months later, I sat in the audience of Tommy's school play. He had the lead role, a brave knight who learned that real strength meant admitting when you were wrong. Melissa wasn't there. She'd moved out into an apartment across town. She and Kyle were separated, working through things slowly, honestly for the first time in years. Kyle sat beside me and Emma sat on my lap, whispering commentary about her brother's performance. We'd started our Sunday visits again, cautiously rebuilding what had been broken. The trust fund was secure. Both kids would go to college debt-free, regardless of what happened between their parents. After the play, Tommy ran off stage and hugged me, still in his night costume. Did you see me, Grandpa? I didn't forget any of my lines. You were perfect, I said, meaning it. Later, driving home alone, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the lies, the financial manipulation. The slow, painful process of restoration. That I'd never wanted revenge. Never wanted Melissa destroyed or my son's marriage ruined. That I just wanted the truth to speak for itself. And it had. Sometimes that's all it takes.